Because you've worked here so long and you've watched the scene change from, the tent, the town, the building, the people coming, the Robinfelds, whatever. You've watched the whole game, so to speak. And you've watched the management change. You've watched different versions of management. You've seen the English directors being imported to teach us how to do it. Then you've seen the Canadians arrive. You've seen the Gang of Four. You've seen the Gang of Three. You've seen the political machinations. What do you think about those who lead this theatre? Can it be done by a single person, or should it be a group like a Martha Henry and a Peter Moss and I can't remember the other two, Don Shipley and Pam Wright or whoever they were?
Pam Wright and Peter Moss. Urjo Correda. So that the Gang of Four came out of a sense of nationalism, did it not? Yes. When Robin was going to leave, there actually was a kind of a pyramid which had, I would think, at least 12 or 14 people in it that might run the place. It was an odd thing, but as it got closer to the time when this was actually going to happen, it ended up at the Gang of Four. And there were the four of them. And then, because of all that carry-on from the board.
Carry-on meaning?
Meaning they didn't have it. Although they had hired the Gang of Four, they lost their confidence in the Gang of Four. And when they presented their season, they decided that it was untenable, and so they fired them.
Why did they lose their confidence in the Gang of Four before they even presented their season?
Well, I think they had presented their season, and then they lost their confidence. But I think also somebody on the board, and I don't even know who this is, and probably I shouldn't talk this way, but the fact that they could get John Dexter to come, I think that sort of raised its ugly head at a point when it was easy. They thought, oh, actually, that's a better choice. That's a better thing to do than to have this Gang of Four. Then, of course, they couldn't get this guy into the country.
And that's because Axworthy, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, said we're not giving him a permit.
No, that's right.
So there was federal...
Correct.
There was federal involvement in reaction to a board of a major institution receiving public money deciding to fire 4 Canadians to hire 1 Brit.
Correct. So then
you can tell which side I sit on.
So then, okay, so now they're screwed completely. So that's when they get John Hirsch, but he can't come right away. So Muriel Sharon is brought in to produce the season, which was a very, very good idea because she was fantastic. And it was, like Peter Roberts he was the production manager at the time, and I was the production stage manager. And between the two of us, we made up the schedule for the next year, like the rehearsal and playing schedule for the next season. And so the two of us were working on, like, okay, if you get somebody by this date to be the artistic director, and by this date they have chosen a season, we can actually open by this date, et cetera, et cetera. And we just kept doing that as the time got less and less.
So you had one for the Gang of Four, then they were fired. So
right.
You had one for Dexter, but it turns out the federal government said we're not going to give him a permit to get into the country. Then you had one for John Hirsch.
For who knows, for whoever. But if you hire somebody, I don't know who it is, you can now do, okay, if by this time you can now only do 8 plays or whatever. And we just kept doing that. I mean, it was like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And it was interesting for me, actually, because I was doing it in the stage management office, which, as you know, is just off the stage. And there were days when I would walk out of that room, out of my room, and walk into that theater and think, this space must not be empty.
Because there was a scenario where
it might.
The festival would not produce for a year.
Yeah, and it was one of those things you go, if this place closes, the inertia will be so great, it will never open again.